The Florida Gators take on the Charlotte 49ers this Saturday. We're going to talk about what the Florida Gators have to do to win that game as handedly as they should here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcast. So thank you for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Happy Thursday. I'm Brandon Olsen. No crossover Thursday today because we don't have a Locked On Charlotte show. However, tomorrow, that's right. Tomorrow we're gonna have a big guest. That's gonna be crossover style. I'm not gonna spoil it, but may or may not be the head coach of the team that the Florida Gators are playing on Saturday. I'm not gonna spoil it though. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's Jace, Jase, medical.com. And like I said, today we're talking about how the Florida Gators, or what the Florida Gators, I guess, need to do to win this game as handedly as they should. Because similar to the McNeese State game, I understand this is a game Florida should win by a lot. Everyone acknowledges that, right? Florida right now, 4 touchdown favorites, if I'm not mistaken. Everybody is on board with Florida should win this game by a lot. Also, we will talk about the very slim chance that Charlotte can win because as much as we don't want to say it, App State beat Michigan, like things like that happen every year. It happens to a team. Don't want to be that. But for me, I think the biggest thing they have to do if you're Florida is you have to win early downs on defense. And I know this was the deal with Tennessee as well, but this is a Charlotte team that they spread the ball, like they spread you out, and they want to run the football out of that. Like they want to come out with 10 personnel, 11 personnel, and run the football. That's what they do. They're like a spread option style there. That's what they want to do. And also, their offensive coordinator, Mike Miller, no slouch. He's a young dude. He's relatively inexperienced as a play caller, but he was with Maryland, which has a very RPO focused offense. He's been around some great minds. I was at Bama under Nick Saban. I believe he was at Clemson also. They've been around, and yeah, this is an offense that they want to spread the ball out. Of course, Jalen Jones is the starting quarterback. Jalen Jones was, of course, Florida Gator at a one point in time, a very long time ago. But that is Jalen Jones, now the starting quarterback at Charlotte. Charlotte wants to run the ball. They're going to use Jalen Jones to run the football. But most importantly, with winning the early downs is not about getting them out of a rhythm. It's that when they've been forced to throw the ball, they've been very bad. Like Charlotte has been bad when they're put into obvious throwing situations. They can't hang at that point. So you make those stops on early downs and force them into those second and longs and third and longs. And then you tee off on whichever quarterback they put out there because they've had 2 play. So whichever quarterback goes out there, you tee off on them. I know last week against Tennessee, Cam Jackson had, I want to say a monster game, but I don't think that even describes just how good he was against Tennessee. So I don't think that monster is even a good enough word to describe it. But Cam Jackson could be in line for another monster game this week. Charlotte likes to run towards the middle of that line. They like to run right up the middle. They run out wide too, but like the area that they run the absolute most is right in that middle, and then to the right side of their line. So they want to run the football kind of a lot and in the middle. Cam Jackson has a very unique opportunity where he can just wreck it entirely from the jump. And Charlotte, they've had success running the football, which we'll talk about in a minute about their explosive plays and everything. But again, this is a spread out team. And I know that against Tennessee, Florida had, 5 guys in the box against 7 for Tennessee, and they just went out there and they still just dominated. You need to do that. I mean, you don't need to go with a light box this week, but you need to dominate the line of scrimmage. You need to dominate their run game, just like you did against Tennessee. Because again, this is a Charlotte team that they're probably going to go up tempo here. I feel like a lot of people have the approach. There's two real approaches when you're an underdog, and a lot of people have that approach. And we'll probably talk about this tomorrow with a potential big guest that we're going to have. But I feel like there's an approach when you're an underdog of we're either going to milk the clock, run the football, try to play good defense, and just not make mistakes, and just try to pick up 17, 24 points and just try to win the game that way. There's also the approach of we're going to go up tempo really fast and try to score really fast and get you reeling. And I feel like that's the approach that Charlotte's going to take. Charlotte's going to go up tempo. They're going to run the football a lot, but I think that they're going to go up tempo and try to just hammer it home, which I will say I think is the right approach for them, just what they're built to do, just what they have. So that would be my expectation. I think they're going to go fast, or they're going to try to go fast. I think they're going to try to run the football. But again, if they lose those early downs, or if they just go down early, you're going to be very hard pressed to convince me that it's not going to get out of hand if that happens. Again, if they lose the early downs, if they go down early, it's going to be very difficult to convince me that this game's not going to get out of hand. Just because, look, I mean, no disrespect to Charlotte here, they've been bad when they're put into obvious throwing situations. When it's RPO quick game on first or second down, they've done well. But if you can disrupt that RPO, just bat the pass down one time on first down, and then it's like, all right, well, 2nd and 10. Now we're probably throwing it. Things get a little bit rough. They've been bad at that point, and I think a lot of that comes on Jalen Jones. I think that's why they started running kind of 2 quarterback system the past couple games to get a little bit more of an effective passing game. But then you trade off the run game, which Jalen Jones has been a huge part of that finding success consistently so far. And I think that's where they're in a really murky spot. Again, this is a program that's being built up now. Like this is Florida's getting Charlotte at a time where Charlotte is not in a great situation. So I think that just adding up is just not ideal for the Charlotte 49ers, but gotta play with the hand you're dealt, right? We are about to talk about the explosive plays that Charlotte does bring to the table, and I will say that if there's ever a time where you're like a big favorite and there's some explosive plays, things can kind of shift really quickly. So you got to stop those. Before we talk about those, though, everyone should feel empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. The Jace case provides 5 life saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you the peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in case of an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure that you have the medication in hand, and Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy, medication delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code Locked On. That's LOCKED, no space, ON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's Jace, JSE medical.com, promo code Locked On. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And also, if you have not yet signed up for Florida Victorious, you should do so and use code LOCKED to save 20% off of your first month. Just saying, you want to support recruiting, the NIL movement in Florida. That's how to do it. And also, you know my rule. If you aren't signed up to Florida Victorious, you are not allowed to complain to me about NIL or recruiting. You're not allowed to. because you can do something about it and you're choosing not to. So that's my stance on things. But I mentioned earlier, Charlotte has had success with explosive runs. And I know that everybody, when we talk about Florida, like I talked about this with Hayden Hansen on yesterday's episode, where I was like, hey, Florida does a thing where Tennessee has these big explosive passing plays deep downfield. Florida can do that in the run game pretty consistently. Florida has 16 carries this year of 10 or more yards, and Florida has a pretty damn good run game. Okay. Charlotte has 13 runs of 10 or more yards. Okay. That to me goes to show you how explosive they can be on the ground. And I understand the argument of, well, they've done it against weaker competition. I don't care. Okay. And here's why I don't care. They've done it against weaker competition with arguably weaker players, or theoretically weaker players, as in worse players. So, yes, they did it against worse competition, but they did it with the same talent level that they had before. Obviously, they're going to be at a lower talent level now because Florida is a better roster than Charlotte, but they've still got that big play potential. They work the zone read into their game. They have the RPO where Jalen Jones is allowed to keep the ball. And Jalen Jones, by the way, so far this season has 6 carries of 10 or more yards. He's creating explosive plays himself. So this is not just like, oh, just show up, shut him down. No, this is an offense that they like to get creative with things. If you've watched Maryland in the past couple years with Talia Tagovailoa, a lot of that is going to be some of the stuff that you're going to see in Charlotte or against Charlotte this weekend. That's what they do. They're kind of transitioning with that spread option offense there too. Jalen Jones right now is their leading rusher with 228 rushing yards. That's on PFF, and I want to make that specification because that does not count if you look at like Sports Reference or ESPN. Those are going to list his rushing numbers with sacks taken out of that. No, we're talking about pure rushing numbers, 228, 9.1 yards per carry. Jalen Jones has been a beast on the ground. Darrell Robinson, 123 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. Like, they've been able to create plays here. They've been able to force defenders to miss tackles. They've got 18 missed tackles so far on the season. Jalen Jones has a damn near 60-yard run. Like, this is still an explosive rushing attack. That's another reason you need to stop them on early downs and get out ahead of them early on, because then they're going to be forced to shy away from that running game. Same way when we talk about Florida versus Utah, Florida versus Tennessee, when we talk about down the line, Florida versus any other SEC program, and we talk about Florida can't get down early, because if you get down early and you have to shy away from the run game, you're gonna lose. Charlotte's the same way. They want to go fast, yes. They want to run the ball, yes. Make them not do that. Okay? Jalen Jones has run for 11 first downs so far. He's had not a great year, but a great year as far as running the football goes. You can't deny that. And I know that a lot of people hate him. We're not going to get into that kind of stuff. But Jalen Jones, he's been bad as a passer, great as a runner. Then you look at, I don't know how to, Trexler Ivy, I think, is the other quarterback. He's also been the one that's been more successful as a passer. He's had better plays, bigger plays that he's been able to actually create as a passer. So Florida, you have to swarm to the ball and gang tackle. That's how you have to make sure these explosive plays don't happen. Can't have missed tackles. Missed tackles are backbreakers in a game like this, where you should win. You're favored by 4 touchdowns on FanDuel, 27.5 points right now. 4 touchdown favorites. The backbreakers are those missed tackles, miscommunications, just over pursuing. Things like that cannot happen in a game like this. Charlotte also has found success with the occasional deep ball Trexler Ivy's been kind of the guy there, as Jalen Jones when throwing deep. Not great. He is 1 for 6, 48 yards and a touchdown, which whoop-de-doo. But Trexler Ivy, when throwing 20 plus yards downfield, is 4 for 6, 140 yards. Okay. And his one pick wasn't his fault. Like that's what we're talking about, where we're talking about the explosive play ability. They can do it in the run game. They could do it in the passing game. Their thing where they do it in the passing game is when they're not forced to throw the ball. If it's 1st and 10 and they want to run play action and take a deep shot, they can do. In fact, I would guess that they're going to do that, because what happened on a 1st and 10 deep shot on the first defensive play of the game for the Florida Gators, the first defensive play of the season for the Florida Gators? Anyone remember? I understand what happened on the play. Like I understand why what happened, but it was a 70-yard touchdown. Okay. And like I mentioned, yeah, their deep ball can go. I don't think their offensive line is good enough to hold up against the Gators pass rush, plain and simple. But they're going to try it at some point. You have to limit the explosive plays again, because explosive plays, like those are the kinds of plays where when you feel like you're out and there's a big bomb play for a huge gain, it doesn't have to be a touchdown, but it's a big gain. And you're like, okay, there's some chinks in the armor here that we can attack. And if you're a Florida Gator, you have to not allow that to happen. I'm not saying this is a trap game. I don't think this is a trap game. I'm not saying that. I am saying that I'm not taking an FBS opponent lightly. Like, I understand Florida should destroy them. I'm not taking FBS opponents lightly. There's Charlotte players in the NFL right now. I'm not taking lightly. There's players on the Charlotte team that will be in the NFL. I'm not sleeping on them completely. I think Florida will knock the doors off them. I don't know if they win by 28. Billy Napier has historically not covered big spreads, but when he's the favorite. But I will say that I do think Florida wins this game handedly. I just don't know if it's a 4-touchdown game. We are going to talk about what Florida's offense has to do. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it right there. Right. That's kind of I'm right there. Depth perception is a wild thing to do on this camera. But before we talk about that, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets whether you win or lose. So you could bet it on tonight's Thursday Night Football. You could bet 3 touchdowns for Christian McCaffrey if you want. And if it hits, which it might because they're playing the Giants, then congratulations. You're still going to get $200 in bonus bets, plus whatever you got from the bet hitting. If it misses, yeah, you took a swing, didn't work, you still get $200 in bonus bets. It's awesome, right? The app's easy to use. The UI is awesome. There's a wide range of betting options. I've told you guys before. Rams games, I just go player to catch a pass next drive, Puka Nacua. Cashes. It's infinite money glitch. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. And remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And I spent the first 2 segments of this talking about the Florida Gators defense and basically saying, hey, don't screw the pooch. Offensively, this is going to sound very old school, I think, of me. And I like to think of myself as like a new school philosophy as far as what I think works and what I think doesn't. Run the damn football. That's what you got to do. That's what you have to do if you're the Florida Gators offense. This is one of those times where I want to make this clear. You can throw the ball freely, do whatever the hell you want. Don't get away from the run game. I feel like whenever these teams or whenever these games are closer than they should be, a lot of times it's kind of like the offense was just kind of trying to style on the lower ranked team or the underdog. And it's like, oh, well, that didn't work how we thought it would. And now we're in a crappy situation. This is one of those times, again, where you can throw the ball. Don't shy away from the run game. That's what you're really good at. Like, if you want to take deep shots, go ahead. If you want to just say, hey, first play, Caleb Douglas, run deep, Go ahead. Do it. Don't shy away from the run game, especially because Charlotte's run defense has struggled at times with missing tackles and taking poor pursuit angles. Like Charlotte's defense. Let me pull up these numbers right now because I need to tell you the exact numbers here. Charlotte's defense this year, so far at least, 38 missed tackles in 3 games. Okay, 38 missed tackles in 3 games. Just for comparative purposes, you look at Florida in 3 games, they had, I think, 11 against Tennessee. They're at 19 on the year. Charlotte, in the same number of games that the Florida Gators have played, they've each played 3. Charlotte has double the missed tackles. That's a lot. Okay, and this is not a Charlotte team that's really known for their defense, obviously, but Charlotte's run defense has struggled. Make sure you go, oh, Trevor Etienne, you know how you're really freaking good? Here you go. Here's the ball. Just take that and go run that way. Montrell Johnson, you know how you're really freaking good? Here you go. Take the ball. Run that way. Trayon Webb, you're a true freshman. Show us what you got. Take the ball. Run that way. And take that approach to things. Again, I don't care how often you throw the football. If you want to just say, hey, we're going to run every first down and throw it second and third, and if we want to go for it on fourth, whatever that is, I don't care. Just make sure that the run game at least remains a part of your offense, because your run game against Charlotte should just churn freely against them. Okay? This is a Florida Gators rushing attack that itself has been very, very good at creating big plays on the ground and making defenders miss, at just straight running through their tackles, picking up yards after contact. This is a Charlotte defense that has done, well, to be frank, allowed opposing teams to do that. Like Charlotte last week, Charlotte took on Georgia State. Okay? Charlotte 49ers took on Georgia State last week, and Georgia State in the run game had a total of 37 carries, 117 yards, half of them after contact. You look at week 2, also Georgia State won that game. You look at week 2 against Maryland. Maryland had 245 rushing yards. 160 of them came after contact. Roman Hemby had 158 rushing yards. 123 of them came after contact. Charlotte makes contact relatively early on, weak contact, and if you watch the film, you'll see it's arm tackle. It's light stuff like that, just trying to get a hand on you and trying to slow you down. But they're not making strong contact. They're not coming in and making these big hits, making these big stops. That's not what they do. That's not in their bag, baby. No. So feel free to try and take deep shots. Experiment throwing the ball. I don't care what you want to do. If you want to throw the ball and you want to go, hey, Graham, run the reverse and someone else throw the ball, do it, dude. I don't do it. Just don't forget to run the football, because as long as you run the football, the game is in the bag. I would expect this offensive game plan to be a mixture of McNeese State and Tennessee. Just in the sense of, I would expect to see rushing the ball the way you did against McNeese State, where you're like, yeah, we're just fine running the ball every single play for this drive, and that's fine. Maybe throw the ball once or twice. But if it's a 14-play drive, we're fine running the ball. But also going with the Tennessee the Tennessee strategy of, we're going to run counter and create rushing lanes, and we're just going to tell the running back, hey, hit that rushing lane. We're going to have 2 offensive linemen, or an offensive lineman and a tight end, running through that lane, and they're basically lead blocking for you. Stuff like that, where you can just make those big plays and just create them schematically, is huge. I would expect to see that. We're going to run the ball a ton. Again, I think you can throw the ball a lot and have a little fun with it and try to figure out the deep ball heading into SEC play. But we're going to run the ball a ton, and we're going to go with power, counter, stuff like that. and just have our way with you. That'd be my approach. That's what I think will happen. Like, that's what I would do and what I think will happen. But we'll see on the field on Saturday. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We'll be back tomorrow again with a special guest that may or may not be the head coach of the Charlotte 49ers. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I'll see you all tomorrow.